This project is turning into one issue right after the other. Not good so far. All right, so I'm going to try to get the exhaust cut out of this thing. I don't know if I have to cut it or hopefully I can just unwound in there without a lift, so I can move the car in and out and clean up and all that kind of stuff without them dragging. Okay, so I've got the exhaust out and I did not have to cut anything. But check out these old 1980s glass packs, man. So it was the cool thing back then. Excellent! And check it out. Very crunchy. Anyway, those are toast. Once I figure out what I'm going to do, I'll probably end up going with a little bit wider pipe anyway. So those are out. Now I want to push this thing out here and finish power washing. Now that the engine's out of the way, we got lots of crud that we can get out of here. So power wash that, and then while that's out and I'll have a open door, we can push this out. And I'll probably put a tarp or something over all this, and then just really clean up the transmission and bell housing, and before we start getting that off. All right, so I've got this clean. Letting it sit out here and dry. Got the Muncie and the bell housing all power washed and degreased. And I wondered why that one area, I guess somebody sprayed black paint on it or something at one time, or gray or something. But I wondered why this area was missing. And that's one area where there was a lot of grease and oil. And I'm wondering if that is a hairline crack. I can feel a little ridge. So if it is, I don't know if that means, I mean, it was obviously greasy, getting oil out of there somehow. Does that mean that I gotta find another case for it? Take all the guts out of that one and put it in a new one, or what? I gotta research all that. This project is turning into one issue right after the other. Not good so far. Let's see how much oil there even is still in this thing. Man, the plug wasn't even tight. Yeah. Bone dry. Well, I guess I'm going to go ahead and pull this thing off and see if I can tell what's going on with it. Worst case scenario is I can buy a replacement case. And in every case they sell, believe it or not, the people have parted these out, and you can find on eBay these cases that are supposedly in good shape with the right number on them. And then I guess I'll learn how to be a transmission rebuilder. So let's see if I can get this off. Okay, so I got it off and I turned it sideways and put it over a drain pan, and it is some coming out, so that's a good thing. When you fill them up, take that plug off and pump it in there until it runs out. So it could have been where it wasn't super low, but looks like there wasn't that much in there to me. So we'll let it drain, and the way to tell what this is if it's a Muncie 20, 21, or 22 is to count those splines right there. Okay, so from what I can tell, this is an M20 wide ratio Muncie 4-speed. It's got a 10 spline shaft, and then these grooves in here show that it was between 1966 and 1970, I think, from what I could tell. There's a great article in Motor Trend, so you can go to that article if you want to know more about identifying your Muncie. Okay, so I've let all this oil drain, and now I'm going to try to get this thing up on the bench. I probably have a hurry in doing it. Oh, they're not super bad. All right, so the first thing I want to do is get all this linkage stuff off of here so we can get this cover open. This all wouldn't have to come off, it's just kind of in the way. Okay, so what we want to do is get these in neutral. What I tell that is when they're both straight up and down, you can spin your shaft. If they're in any gear, it won't spin. Okay, so they got to both be in neutral because we have little forks in there that we want them to be able to come out. Okay, here's our fork. This is our third and fourth fork. This is our first and second fork. Get this out of the way. And there's a way to move this gear. There we go. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. Looks like, to me, looks like the teeth are all in really good shape. Synchronizers, which are these little gold rings. I think what you check for is the space in here. And the less space, the more worn out the synchronizers are, which would mean like you're grinding gears trying to go in and those get wore out. But these look like they have a good space in there. You guys know more about this than me, let me know in the comment section. But to me, it looks like in good shape. So I think I am safe to try to find a case for this thing if we think this crack is a big issue. I don't see how it can be when it's the top of the case and there's hardly any fluid in here. You know, these things don't have much fluid in them. I'm trying to see if I can see the crack from the inside. The crack that we were talking about on the outside is right there. If it is a crack, or if it was, you know, it could have been an imperfection in the mold when they mold these things. I don't see anything in there. And it would have to be flinging straight up to come out. I'll have to think about that. But the next thing we got to do is drive this pin. This is our reverse one. So to get this tail housing off, because we want to replace this gasket in here. So we'll have to drive this pin up. Now see that? See all these little things here? Those look like cracks, but they're not cracks. There's no way. I'm sure those are little raised areas. I'm sure that's like imperfections in the mold. So maybe that's not a crack over there. Anyway, we're gonna have to drive this pin. This is a tapered pin. We want to drive it from the bottom up. Pull it up this way. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to drive it down, and that will crack all this stuff. So you got to try to drive it up. And then once that's out, there's a little groove in this reverse lever. We'll want to pull this out this way. And then we'll take all these bolts off. And then this reverse lever coming out should allow us to pull this tail housing off, which we'll need to go off to replace this seal down here. And that's when we'll have grease and go everywhere. So we'll probably have some kind of a tray up here to do that in. Okay, so I've cleaned this up a little bit more. And man, I wish whoever did this last would have sprayed black spray paint all over it. It is a mess. I'm going to try to clean that up more after I get it apart. I hate to put it back in there looking like that. But so I'm going to try to drive this pin out from the bottom up. There's the pin right here. And it is a tiny little hole. I hope that I have it right size punch. Okay, I finally got that pin out. The only way I could do it, here it is, was to take a torch and heat this aluminum right here enough to expand it enough to where I could get this punch in the hole, and finally got it driven out. I mean, it is in there tight. Now I should be able to get this and pull it out. Yep. So that's the whole point of removing that pin, is to pull this up. And then whenever we take these bolts off, that should allow us to slip this out, and this reverse gear will go past whatever hangs it up in there. All right, so I finally got it apart, and now it is draining the rest of that oil out, sticky old nasty oil. And that is going to be fun getting it back together, I'm telling you. I've got to, replace this gasket here, and then there's one in here, and then I got to take this other side off, and there's one in there, and then all the little seals around all the little shifter points in the plate. And I forgot to take off this. I should have taken that off before I separated. That's the speedometer gear in there. There's a little bolt here that pops out. And remember, our speedometer is off in the Firebird, and so I got to figure out the percentage. I think it was 20% off, so I got to count the teeth on the speedometer gear and order the one 20% more so that it'll make our speedometer correct whenever we get going again. So that tells me, this is going to tell me what I need to order for gaskets. So I'll get those ordered. The whole big thing with this car was how much it leaked everywhere. And now that I got the engine out and transmission and everything, there's nothing left in it, that can leak. And so I thought, man, I'll have a dry floor for the first time. How does a car with nothing in it still leak? I cleaned this whole floor after I got everything out and dried up all the oil. So, all right, so it's a few days later, and I've been working on cleaning this stuff, and I went ahead and got the guts out of that case. So here's all of our gears and the guts that have not been started to be cleaned yet, but I've been working on all that. So that still needs a lot of cleaning. I've been trying to get all that black paint off of it, and just, it's a mess, man. It's still got a few more hours of cleaning on it. And I did get the gasket set in. They already have the sealant made on them in a really nice little bead. So when you put it on there, you just put a little sealant on the edge of it to hold it in place. And then it's all sealed around each hole. It's really nice. And I've got the seals for the tail shaft and the little deals that you bend up to hold the bolts keep them from spinning out. There's our speedometer gear that's 20% more teeth than what was in there. All of this stuff I need to soak and clean and go through it all, but it looks really good. I mean, I don't see, like, the synchronizers don't look wore. Teeth are all really nice. When you take this piece off here, this bearing is in there, and there's all the little rollers. They just are loose in there, so you have to clean all that and then re-grease them with some really thick grease to put it back in when you're putting it back together. The bearing that goes on the tail housing, or no, on the front end, the other end, these pieces were broke. There's supposed to be some little things that see those holes in them. There's supposed to be little pieces that hold them in on each side to keep all the balls in the same distance from each other. Those were broken. Those little pieces were down in the case. So I ordered a new bearing. This is gonna be fun learning how to put all this back together, but I'm just glad it's in good condition. Oh, and when I was cleaning this case, what we thought was a crack, I looked inside and could not see any evidence of any kind of cracks or anything on the inside. It looked really good. You can't see it, but I still have more cleaning to do in there. But I'm just glad that it does not look like it needs to have anything done with it. Okay, so let's talk shifters. Here is the shifter that I pulled out of the Firebird. And they're both Hurst shifters. You can tell original from a non-original. The fact that, first of all, this has bolts holding, whatever you want to call it, shifter handle to the shifter. This is like riveted on or welded in or something. It does not come off. And this one is, notice it's round down here, and this is square. So that's the main difference. These had stops on them. These did not. There's not a whole lot of other difference. I just wanted to make sure I had the absolute feel and look of an original. When I get this done, I want the interior to look like, I mean, it was exactly what it looked like when it came out of the factory. That's what I want the interior to look like. So this was part of that. This was an expensive piece here. So they're both Hurst Competition Plus. They both say that on there. I don't know if you can see it on that. It's so greasy, but this one, it actually came out of a 69 Camaro. They use the same, the earliest Camaros did not use these shifters, but the Firebirds did. So the 67 and 68 Firebirds used the shifter, and then in 69 they figured out, hey, those are the best shifters, so we're putting them in the Camaros too. So 69 Camaro had that same one, so that's what that one's out of. So that was the same one that would have came in this Firebird. So this one I'll clean up and I'll sell it, and this is the one that's going back in the new one when it's done. So if you guys remember me talking about how this car leans to the driver's side really bad, and I showed you that from the back. Well, the front it's the same. So it's the whole car. It's not just the back tilted. And one thing I've noticed, I don't know if I mentioned or not in another video, is that when I turn really sharp left, I was getting a rubbing sound. I think when I drove it, I mentioned that. If you'll look over here now, we've got the motor out and it's all sitting really high. Okay, I'm going to push this down and you're going to watch the flex in this upper control arm. See how that flexes and moves like it's supposed to? And I've got lots of play, lots of movement up and down on this side. And when I come over to this side, I got none. It doesn't flex, it doesn't go down, so I've got either a broken spring or this control arm is bound somewhere, some way, that's causing that to not flex. And if you'll notice, like, we've got all these things have shims everywhere. There's shims over on that side, and there's shims here, but there's nothing in this section where there should be a shim, if there's supposed to be shim there. So I don't know if that's part of if it's bound up, part of the reason it's bound up, or I have no idea. It also looks like there might be a crack right here. I don't know if that's looks like it's been there a long time. If it is, it needs to be welded back. But so what I'm going to do right now is jack this thing up, get this front tire off. We've never taken any tires off of this car before, and see if we can see what's going on with that spring. It'd be really nice if that spring was just broken and we just replace the spring that would fix it, but I have a feeling it's something more sinister. Watch when I lift this car up. Okay, I don't have it off the ground, it's on the ground. And when I lift it, it's like the car doesn't come up at all. The tire just immediately starts coming up. So there's no, like usually your car would come up a whole bunch before the tire started to come up. So hopefully it's some kind of spring issue. All right, so we've got both sides of the car jacked up evenly on 2 jack stands, so that when you look up in the center, now the car is actually level for the first time. You can look at the top of the roof compared to the garage door, and it's level. So If you guys remember earlier when we were talking about how it was unlevel in the back, I had 2 jack stands in the back holding up the axle on each side, and the car was still slanted, even though the axle was up level. So the only way that that could happen would be if there was this front was down and making the back down, even though it was level on jack stand. So this is definitely the issue. It doesn't have anything to do with the back. Where the left hub is hanging down way lower than the right hub. So there's something bound up on this driver's side hub that's keeping it up. And you can try to jack the hub up with the jack, and the whole car just raises up. So it's like it's all the way in its upward position. So I'm going to do some research and figure out what causes that. But there's something either frozen up or bound up, or I don't think it's a broken spring. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think it's something in the upper or lower control arm. Okay, so while we're trying to figure out all the suspension stuff on the car, I thought I'd tell you kind of what we found out about the engine. This is for sure a 327 Chevy small block, which we found with the casting numbers. So not only is it not a Pontiac, but it's not even a 350. So, and since there are issues that we don't know really the condition about this motor, like I showed you the compression numbers. Number 8 cylinder was, I think, 75. Seems like that's what it was. So I don't know what's going to be involved in getting those compression numbers back up. And also it has the timing gears, which I don't like. So I want to make that a timing chain. So, you know, just the fact that I'm going to end up spending money on a 327 that I don't want in the car anyway, I just decided to go ahead and find a Pontiac 350. So I found one probably 6 hours or so away. So I'm going to try to go sometime this week and get it. And it's a 350 Pontiac. It actually is a 1970 instead of a 68, but it should fit right in there. We'll have to do something. It's from an automatic, so we'll have to find a bell housing that connects the original 350 to the original Muncie that they would have had in 68. So that shouldn't be hard to do. But then I also will have to find a flywheel and clutch and pressure plate and all that stuff. But then at least everything should go back in and look the way it's supposed to have looked in a 68 Firebird.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button down below, get subscribed, and hit the bell to turn on notifications for next week's video, because you definitely don't want to miss that. Dad's heading to Chicago, Illinois to pick up the new Pontiac 350 engine, as well as digging into the transmission to find out that there might be just a little bit more damage than what he was expecting. Count on a full teardown of that transmission and to see the inner workings of everything in there. It's pretty interesting, as well as checking out that brand new engine and a couple other things that should be pretty fun to watch. But with that, it's time for our verse of the week, which is Isaiah 40:31. It says, "But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint." I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. We'll see you next time. And always remember, don't retire it if you can rebuild it. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in and watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any awesome content. Have a good one.